Okay, this is our very last lecture for the year. We're going to be talking about the carbon cycle. It's not very lengthy, but it is kind of a little bit confusing. And the carbon cycle is when we talk about carbon dioxide and oxygen that's in the air and how it gets there and how it's used. And it's a cycle, but it's kind of like our food web that we talked about. It goes off in kind of some different directions. So carbon dioxide. This is the stuff we breathe out, which is CO2, carbon dioxide. And oxygen, which we'll call O2, are continually absorbed and emitted back into the environment through this carbon cycle. Plants, algae, and bacteria use CO2 from the environment to make carbon-rich sugar for energy through photosynthesis. So let's start from the beginning of our carbon cycle. Of course, to do anything, we have to think about, okay, here's a plant. I'll just draw a flower, or I'll tell you what, let's draw a tree. We'll draw a tree. Okay, and this is an apple tree. I'm going to draw some apples on it. But it also goes for grass. Okay, this is my grass. Okay, I'm going to put the grass down here too. And of course, we've talked about this before. For anything to live, we have to have certain things, and one of the things we have to have is the sun. Okay, and using the sun and the nutrients in the soil. So we got nutrients in the soil, and we have rain, water. We'll put down here. Okay. The plants convert this sunlight and water and nutrients, and when they do this, this is called photosynthesis. And photosynthesis is where this plant takes the sun and the water and nutrients in the soil, and they convert. Oh, I'm missing something. There's something wrong. Hang on. One of the things they also need is CO2, and they convert this into sugars. Okay? Not the sugar that we understand, but plant sugars, okay? So in the case of the tree, it makes like leaves, and it makes bark, and it makes apples, and especially the apples, they're very sweet, and it makes these apples. In the grass, it doesn't make apples or anything sweet, but within the grass, it's making a type of sugar or a carbohydrate that an animal can eat. So we're going to make a little animal here. Let's make a goat. Put a little tail on him. Okay, and he eats the grass, okay? And then within the grass is this sugar or carbohydrate, and that is used to fuel this animal. He converts it into something else, okay? And so, put out here, these plants are taking in CO2, and during this photosynthesis of making these sugars from the sun and the rain and the CO2 and the nutrients in the soil, what is the byproduct of that is oxygen, O2. So these plants are also giving off oxygen. Let me draw some plants over here, okay, which my little goat here, put a nose on him, he breathes in, okay? He has to breathe in O2, okay? O2, oxygen. And what does he exhale? Well, his byproduct, after he's eaten to survive, his byproduct of this O2 and of these sugars is CO2. So what he expels or breathes out is CO2, which the plants now use to make these sugars again, and their byproduct, the byproduct of the plants, is O2, which all animals need to survive. So we have a person here, put a little hair on them, put some ears and a collar, and pants, put some on, okay. So he breathes in, and this is called respiration, oxygen, which is O2, okay? He breathes this in, and what he breathes out is CO2, carbon dioxide, which is CO, it's not very good, C2. But it's not just this breathing in and out. Well, you could say very, very easily, we breathe in oxygen, we breathe out carbon dioxide. The plants breathe in carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen. And that's not really the whole carbon cycle. It also has to do with these plants producing these sugars, and these animals, like us eating the apple or the goat eating the grass, are converting those sugars inside of our body. So that's also a part of this carbon cycle, okay? So when we talked about photosynthesis, that's part of the plant. And animals, of course, eat the food, and carbon is stored in their bodies or released as CO2 through respiration, okay? So that's where you think about, well, where does the carbon come from the carbon dioxide? The carbon comes from eating the apple. So if he's over here eating an apple, the apple contains carbohydrates, and those carbohydrates enter the body, and then they are expelled later on as carbon dioxide. I know that's kind of confusing, but the things that I want you to remember is that we breathe in oxygen, we breathe out carbon dioxide, that plants take in carbon dioxide, and the byproduct of a plant is this oxygen, okay, oxygen, O2. But plus, they're making also carbon for us to eat, whether it's an apple, whether it's a broccoli, whether it's a squash, watermelon. These are all things that contain carbon, and that's where the word carbohydrates comes from. And we use those to eat. It's converted in our body, and then it exhaled or through respiration comes out as CO2. So that is the last video lecture. I hope you have a great summer, and I hope to see you again next year. And take care, and we'll see you later.